What's up, everybody, and welcome to Growing Up Gaming, your weekly podcast where we meet a new person of the internet to discuss their childhood with gaming and how it inspired their lives today. My name is Mitch Power. Again, thank you guys so much for returning each and every week to the show. Hopefully you've subscribed on iTunes or Google Play, or you're checking us out on YouTube, which if you're checking us out on any of those methods, thank you so much. And again, if you like the show each and every week, make sure you hit subscribe so you can get new episodes each and every Tuesday. This week on the show, we have our guest. His name is Bryan Scott. I met this man on Twitter. He was part of that Twitter sphere where everybody is commenting, and I see his name pop up a lot on a lot of the posts. So asked if he wanted to be on the show and share his history, and he was very nice enough to do so. Also, this is his very first podcast, so I was glad to be the person to help introduce him. Hopefully he gets to be guest on other shows. If you guys want to be on the show just like he was, go ahead and send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 on Twitter, or at the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast on Twitter. Without further ado, let's get things started with Bryan Scott. Do you remember what initially got you started playing games? Was it a family member? Was it a friend? Was it some kid at school that had some cool shirt or magazine? Do you remember what got you started?
Yeah, so really, as far back as I can remember, I remember our family having the old Atari 2600. So I remember just finding, a box of games out in the shed and pulling them out one day, and somebody, I'm sure, helping me plug it all in and getting it hooked up to the TV and stuff. But yeah, I definitely remember playing games like Asteroids, Dig Dug, Pac-Man, and stuff like that on the original Atari. So I guess that was really my first introduction into video games.
So it was just some box, like a dusty old box in the garage that
right.
I'm sure your parents had from like back in the day, and they just didn't use it anymore?
Right. I don't know. It could have been my brother's. I do have an older brother. He's about 7 years older than me. And really my first memory of playing that Atari was here where I live now in South Carolina. I was born in New Jersey, and then we moved to South Carolina when I was 4 years old. So I really don't have much memory of anything in New Jersey. But after moving down here, that's when I remember us having like the Atari hooked up to the small TV in the dining room, and playing Asteroids like on the kitchen counter and stuff like that. So that was really my very first memory of it. It's pretty foggy now, but.
So your parents basically made you go into like the other room. Was it like, so the dining room TV, I'm assuming, was some like 13-inch, probably like tiny little TV.
Exactly.
Yeah, some like super baby TV. And they were like, yeah, you're not going to mess with our nice TV in the living room. You can go in the kitchen, in the dining room.
Right. For sure.
It's so funny because like I remember my grandma, like she had a dining room, which, I mean, it was kind of like adjacent to the kitchen. It wasn't like separated by walls or stuff, but I remember she having a little like 13-inch, like she had a countertop that she would like sit. It was almost like a bar top almost. Like she had chairs all around it, and then she would just sit at the end, and she had a TV that was like at the end of the bar, and it was like a 13-inch TV, and for whatever reason, she loved watching TV there. Like she had a bigger TV, and she had a couch and all that, and just decided, no, I'm just going to go ahead and, watch TV at this kitchen bar top counter. I'm like, all right, whatever. Yeah. So, yeah, I can imagine that's exactly what I picture when you say dining room TV. I'm like some little 13-inch tube.
That's exactly what it was, with giant rabbit ears, and most of us had like tinfoil wrapped around them to try to get better reception.
Of course, yeah. Did you live in like a remote area where it wasn't like there wasn't as much to do?
Yes. So we lived out in the boonies in a town called Fountain Inn, and I mean, it even sounds country, right?
Right.
But yeah, we lived on about 6.25 acres of just wooded land. So walk off the back porch of the house, and there's a giant slope. The whole backyard was sloped, but then there was nothing but trees, and then a creek back there. So we used to take adventures up and down the creek, during the summer when we're home from school. And, yeah, we were out in the middle of nowhere. And,
that's crazy.
But, back to, I guess, your question, what got me into gaming, I guess something that helped pull me along in that area. When we moved to South Carolina, we met a family who lived just half a mile up the street from us. And they had a son about my age. He was 6 months older than me. And so I met him, became really good friends. He would become my best friend growing up. And we spent, basically every weekend together. We would alternate spending the night at each other's houses. And they were also into video games. And so, like, his dad, he was huge into tech and all the new gadgets and stuff that was coming out. So anytime there was a new game system, he was first to get it.
Nice.
And so, yeah, so I'd go spend the night at his house. And then, I remember the first time when they got a Super Nintendo playing Super Mario World and just going from like Atari and the NES type of experiences at my house to seeing the wonder that was Super Mario World and how it, really revolutionized gaming at the time. It was pretty magical. So,
yeah, I mean, that's always the big, what sucks now is like the jump between consoles now isn't as large,
Right.
Like that's the only thing that kind of sucks is like, back in the day when you went from NES to Super NES, you were like, holy shit. When you went from that to 64 PlayStation, you were like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And it would get progressively crazier. Now it's just like, okay. I mean, I'm not saying like graphics aren't going to get better because obviously 4K, better more pixels, whatever. It gets sharper, but like just that wow factor isn't as there anymore. I think now it's more just like what games are capable of doing as far as like storytelling and the size and scope of games and how detailed they are. Like I think that's what's going to be the bigger difference now.
Right.
Because like I said, games already look pretty awesome. Like there's not much of an improvement there. Whereas back then that was a humongous jump. Also, shout out to dads who are into technology because my kids are definitely benefiting from that exact same thing.
Right.
I get everything that's new. Like the moment a system comes out, I have it. So if they ever want to play it, they could, but not necessarily have to. You know what I mean? So
yeah, for sure.
But so you would have like that's a good thing though because you always had that buddy, and especially if you lived. So that was when you were in that like really remote area still. So
exactly.
Like okay, so that's always good because like. It's funny because I had a friend, his name was Chris. He was in the same thing where he lived in like wooded area, just woods all over the place. And then like down the street in another random house in the middle of the woods was another buddy of his and they became close. And it was kind of a similar situation where like they had a lot of the newer tech and stuff because again, they were kind of isolated from everybody else. So it's not like they had many opportunities to really go do much. So they kind of had a lot of the stuff. I remember he had that like gigantic satellite dish back before DirecTV had a normal looking like dish.
Yes.
That satellite dish that's like 8 foot big for some reason. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? It's just, but that's what you gotta do. I mean, at least back then you didn't need the internet, cause again, we didn't know what the internet was, but at least back then you could have a Super Nintendo and not have to rely on a connection.
Right.
So that's always fun.
Right. Absolutely.
So then you, like, obviously, so were your parents cool with gaming? Like, were they I'm not going to say necessarily encouraging, but like, would they ever discourage you like, oh, get outside and do something, or were they pretty cool about you doing it?
They were pretty cool about me doing it. So I guess another thing I can mention, my parents divorced when I was pretty young.
Okay.
So it was, I guess, just a few years after we moved down here to South Carolina. So I was, I think, around 7 years old. So when they separated, I lived with my mom for the majority of the time, and then I would see my dad every other weekend. So, it's me and my brother now living with my mom, and she's, trying to work her butt off to raise us and, put a roof over her head and food on the table and stuff. So,
right.
So that being said, it was like, I'm not going to say that like she neglected us or anything. That
well,
definitely
sure. She was just busy being a provider.
Exactly. She was busy. So it was like video games were a way to occupy my time and keep me from being a bug to her. So much. So they were cool with it. I guess there's one time I guess I got in trouble for my curiosity. I was playing a fighting game. I don't know if it was Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat or something, or maybe some friends were talking about it. And I remember just audibly saying one time, in the family room while my mom and brother and I are watching TV that I wonder what it's like to punch somebody. And the look that mom gave me, I'll never forget. And I was grounded from just saying that out loud for like a week, and I was not allowed to play video games. And I think that's probably one of the only times she was questioning whether or not these games I was playing were actually good for me or maybe not.
Sure. I mean, the thing is that, back then, I would say parents were just more concerned because they were less informed. Like, obviously, things like the ESRB showed up because Mortal Kombat was, ripping parts out of people and,
exactly.
Impaling people with spikes. But, like, back then, I think parents were just, the thing that sucks now is I guess you could say the same thing, right? People think, the influence of the internet's bad, or, social media is bad, or this is bad. Everybody, I guess every generation has their thing. Back in the day, like, my parents, it was, oh my God, Kiss. You're listening to Kiss? You're going to worship the devil. Random stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like I said, everybody has their own generation thing. I think people with gaming now, I'm not going to say it's more accepted, but I would assume like people just recognize it more as not just like, oh, mindless fun or whatever. Some people really enjoy the stories of games and they can tell a great story and they can, provide a lot of entertainment for people. Obviously, people are still using video games to help keep kids occupied. Example, not video games, but now it's the internet. Because now my daughter, who's 3, we just talked about it earlier, she's sitting on the couch right now on my old smartphone watching YouTube Kids with headphones on. Keeping her pretty quiet and pretty occupied. And, you could pretty much say now Fortnite's your best babysitter because you could put a Fortnite in front of a kid and just leave them alone and they'll play for hours. So the bad thing, though, is that's the same for me. Like, I'm like, no, I can literally disappear and just, play games for hours. Sometimes my wife will say, I feel bad leaving the house. I'm like, I'm not going to be bored. I got stuff to do. Like, you go do stuff. Have fun. So, yeah, everybody has their own thing to help keep them occupied. Obviously, in your situation, your mom was probably, I'm not going to say thankful for the games, but at least that you had something to keep yourself occupied, right? And at least it wasn't something that was like so counterproductive to your person. Yeah, it's not like, he started drinking or, he started doing drugs. Like, no, he just found video games. But then you said that one word and then she got pissed, man. Yeah, you should probably, the whole fighting game thing, I think back then, that was the only thing because fighting and like, people freaking out over Power Rangers, which I've said already. My mom told me she didn't want me watching Power Rangers because she thought I was going to whoop shit on my sister. And I was like, Mom. Or there's like people doing karate moves on cats and stuff. Like, because you're a dumb kid and you don't know any better. So, now you do that and you get put on the internet and your life's ruined forever. So you shouldn't kick cats, people. No,
I'm actually pretty thankful for, the freedom, I guess, that mom gave me growing up. And I told her this recently, just, I guess just the fact that as long as she knew who I was with and where I was going, she didn't really care what I was doing because she knew what kind of kid I was and I wasn't really going to get into any kind of crazy trouble. So,
and I think that's how you have to treat your kids. Like, you have to trust that they're cool, but also you have to be that person that checks it yourself too. Like, if your kid's a badass kid, you need to recognize, your kid's kind of a piece of shit and needs to do something about it. Like, I hate when, like, it's the same thing with parents with school. Like, people will say, like, oh my God, the teachers, they don't know. Like, parents will blame teachers instead of their badass kid that their kid's not paying attention.
Right.
Like, real quick, your kid's a little shithead. He should be paying attention in school, and like, you're gonna blame the teacher for that. All right, you're awful. You're a terrible person. But yeah, as far as it goes, was your mom? Obviously, like I said, your mom was a provider, which is, she did what she could, and that's awesome. She was able to provide for you kids. Were you? Like, was she cool about getting you, like, obviously, if money was tight and everything, it was in my house too, but like, was there like a situation where you got a game console and you had to kind of hang on to that thing for dear life because, you just got that and that was it for like years?
Yeah, I feel like the only time that we got new games was like Christmas and birthdays. So I don't think that, and maybe there was, it's hard to remember now, but I don't really recall just the random, let's go to a store and pick out a new game today. so yeah, we played and replayed a lot
Right,
of what we had until the next birthday or Christmas. And so like my birthday, it falls maybe just shy of a month after Christmas. So those two were always back to back, and then I had the rest of the year to wait until I can get some new games, or as I got older and could save my allowance, I might get one in the middle of the year sometime too. But yeah, they weren't. Neither of my parents were really super involved in gaming itself. They were cool with me doing it, but it's not like I could sit down with Dad and hand him a controller and us play, whatever it was together.
Right, and that was actually going to be one of my follow-up questions. Like, did they ever play games with you or anything?
Not that I can remember. One of my earliest memories, also of I guess playing the NES, is playing Duck Hunt.
Yep.
And I do remember my dad, my uncle, my brother, and I just kind of taking turns shooting the light gun at the TV, knocking down the ducks. And of course, me being so young then, I thought it was just the coolest thing for me to walk directly up to the television and put the gun right on the duck and try to shoot him that way.
Everyone did that. Every little kid, when you were just like a little kid, or like that little like cousin would come over and they'd be like, "Oh, you're just gonna get directly in front of the TV and do it." That's how you gotta do it, though. Right. So that's probably like the most gaming that I've done with my parents in any capacity. So, but Dad was cool with it too. Like, I remember some of those weekends when I would go to visit, it was pretty traditional for like us to go and get, my brother and I to go with him and get either pizza or subs, and then we'd go to the local video rental store and pick out a couple movies. But he didn't have any game systems over where he was living at that time, so it was like I had to leave all my games behind when I went to visit. So got to a point where Blockbuster would rent out whole video game systems. Right.
And I remember there being like some crazy high deposit. Like I think you had to plunk down the entire cost of the console as a deposit. Just in case
basically. Like you could have just gone and fucking bought one if you wanted to. You know what I mean? But like
it was something like that where like you put down $200 and you can take home a Sega Genesis for the weekend, and then when you bring it back, you might get all but $20 back or something like that for the
just based off how long you had it. Exactly.
Yeah. So got to the point where I would ask, "Hey, can we rent a Sega Genesis for the weekend?" And he was cool with that. So a few times I would go over there and get to try out a different system, because I didn't have a Sega Genesis yet at the house. I had my brother had a Super Nintendo, I had a regular Nintendo, and by that point I was done with the Atari. So I got introduced into Sega that way by renting them while visiting my dad and playing Sonic and, gosh, I can't even remember what some of the other ones were now, but
it's okay. They probably weren't that great. Unfortunately, it sounds so bad, but I was a Sega kid and I love my Genesis, but like looking back, that library is just not that great. But
yeah,
I think it's cool though that you obviously you were familiar with Nintendo and all that stuff, but then it was kind of the opportunity when you went over there, like, hey, let's try and see what Genesis has to offer. So
exactly.
That's really cool, because I mean, some kids didn't have the like me, for example, I straight didn't play a lot of Super Nintendo stuff because I didn't have the opportunity to. Like, every one of my friends had Genesis, and we very rarely got different systems because, of course, you want to trade games with your buddies and borrow games and all that stuff, so you get the same shit. And yeah, I very rarely, I think there was only like one person who had a Super Nintendo, and like I played Mario World, and I think that's it, but I missed out on a lot of good games, whereas, I didn't have the opportunity to really play much on Supers. So the fact that, and especially your dad was cool with it, whatever. I remember those ridiculous high deposits, because I remember asking to rent one, and my parents were like, no, I'm not going to, what if you break this damn thing over the weekend? I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I never even got the chance, but I remember they used to come in these like giant, like, briefcases that were they had like foam liners to like line out everything perfect. They looked like they were like military grade shit. I was like, wow, what are these things?
That's what I was going to say. It seemed like something from the Army or...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, something that should be like handcuffed to somebody as like a fucking military operation. No, it's just a Genesis, people. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, for sure.
So how often were you going over there? Was it like were you going over there often enough to like, would he rent it like a lot of the times, or would he just rent it like once in a while?
I think it was just once in a while. It definitely wasn't every time that we went over there, because we did other things too. You know, we would go out and spend time together doing other things. But, you know, he was trying his best to work as well, and starting his own business. So sometimes that meant working on the weekends, even though we were over there visiting. He might have to go out on a call, and so, you know, maybe in some of those weekends were the times where we got to rent the consoles. And
again, good babysitter. I mean,
yeah,
it sounds bad, but I mean, it's true. Because I mean, again, here's the thing. I think babysitter is a bad word for it. I would say attention getter. Sure. Because like, definitely, it's not like, because a babysitter at least, you know, gets you food and like make sure your well-being's okay, whereas the game just sits there and just. It doesn't give a shit if the house is burning down. Like, yeah, it just sits there and gets your attention for hours. So, yeah, no, I there's plenty of times when I'm sure that I was over at my grandma's house and she just knew I was in the room and I was cool and I was just sitting there playing games doing nothing. So, nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
So, and, yeah, so you had Super Nintendo, and then occasionally you would have Genesis. So, like, you know, different Genesis things were happening. Then at school, like, did you have like friends at school that were into it as well, or was it mostly like you and the neighbor kid that you hung out with that were into it?
No, kids at school enjoyed it too. I remember, I remember trading NES games in the bathroom at, you know, elementary school. You know, I traded Rad Racer for, I don't even remember what I traded it for, or actually, I don't think in this case it was trading. I think I was loaning it to a kid named Marcus, and I'm still bitter about that because he never returned it.
Dude, I think we all might have one of those stories where we accidentally lent something to somebody and never got it back. I remember that happening with Resident Evil Director's Cut for PlayStation 1. And then the worst one, which was just like super upsetting, was there was a game called Wild 9 on PlayStation, which it's just like action platformer style game, but I thought it was cool. And one of my buddies, Aaron, which, you know, surprisingly I haven't seen again, Aaron was like, hey, let me borrow that. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll let you borrow it. So then all of a sudden, like 2 weeks later, Aaron's not at school. I'm like, okay, I don't know what's up with that, but Aaron's not in school. And then like he's not in school for like a month, and I'm like, what happened? And they're like, oh, you didn't hear? He moved away. I'm like, that son of a bitch had my game. Like,
yeah, Aaron moved to another state.
Yeah, exactly. Aaron's gone forever, and I have no idea where my game is, so I just kind of chalked it up to, well, I guess I'm never going to see that again. So yeah, that unfortunately happened. So which game was it that happened with you?
Rad Racer, I believe it was NES.
That's a fun game.
Yeah, I enjoyed racing.
Nobody likes to lose any game to begin with, but in some cases, if it's a shitty game, you're like, I don't care.
And you're also, like, at that age, you're kind of scared to, like, admit that you've lost it or somebody stole it.
Yeah, you really don't want to go up to parents because you don't want to get in trouble, right? Like,
exactly.
Like, you go up and go, I got to tell you something. And they're like, what the hell? What'd you let somebody borrow your game for? What'd you do that for? You know?
Yeah. Why'd you bring that to school?
Yeah, what'd you bring that to school for? I remember getting, I think it was Pokemon cards taken away at school. And my mom was just like, what the hell are you doing? Like, why are you even bringing those to school? I'm like, well, where do you think I trade with people, Mom? Like, duh, school. But yeah, I remember, you know, that bringing it to school conversations. Yeah, that was always fun. No, dude, if I thought about bringing like my Game Boy to school, my mom would be like, are you out of your mind? You're not bringing that shit to school. I'm like, oh.
Well, see, that's what a lot of us did. I mean, I was growing up through elementary, middle school when Game Boy was popular and Game Gear was coming out, and what was that, like, portable version of the Genesis called? They had
the Game Gear, and then they had the
Sega Nomad. Yeah, Sega Nomad that could play your full size Genesis.
By the way, shout out to that thing, because it just got mentioned in a previous episode I just did. For real, that thing was the ultimate portable console before the Switch came out. Sorry, that thing was a full-fledged Genesis. It was amazing.
It was. I remember being on a class field trip somewhere. I don't know where we were going, but you know, another kid in the class had it and let me play it, and he was playing Comic Zone, like one of my favorite Genesis games. And just the fact that I was like, are you serious? We're on a bus right now and we can play full version of Comic Zone. Pretty amazing. That machine was a beast with batteries though.
Oh yeah, dude. Well, Sega and batteries are dude, I think Sega might own stock in Energizer and Duracell and every battery company in the world because like
probably the parent company.
Oh yeah, dude, like 6 AA's would blast through. And the same thing was a Game Gear. And like even Game Gear back in the day was like way ahead of its time too because like it was a color screen, it was backlit, it was like, you know, better graphics and it was all nice, but that thing just one, the games were not that great. But two, dude, that thing just ate 6 AA's like breakfast. It was just like, all right, we're through these. What's next?
Right.
Like it was crazy. But yeah, dude, the Nomad, I remember a Nomad existing because I had like random game magazines where they had advertisements for it. But then, seeing one in person, I never really realized like this is legit. Like this thing literally plays everything and it's just portable and good for them, man. That's awesome. I mean, to have that kind of technology in that form factor at that time is pretty awesome.
No joke. And one of them, I can't remember if it was the Game Gear or the Nomad, but I think one of them had a TV tuner, did it not?
Game Gear did. I remember that because, again, it's one of those dumb ads that I saw. I was just like, oh, my God, look at this. It has a TV tuner. And it had, like, a giant antenna that could come out of it, too. Like, the antenna was probably, like, 5 foot long. So, I mean, I don't know when you would use it, but, like, I never had experience with, like, portable TVs except for one time. Because I grew up in Illinois, I went on a camping trip in like June, and it was during the NBA Finals when the Bulls with Michael Jordan were always in the finals. So like, I remember not really knowing portable TVs of any kind until like I heard all these people crowded around this one camper, this one like trailer over there, and I go over there and somebody had a portable TV and they were watching the Bulls game, and I was like, holy shit, that's really cool. And then the only thing I kept thinking of is, dude, the Game Gear has this thing. That's all I kept thinking of.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the Game Gear, again, the Game Gear, though, dude, that thing just, it was okay, I guess, maybe, sort of. I don't know, dude. I never really had it. I never really played with it. I just thought it was cool, but then again, Nintendo just had that portable market just smashed to pieces. Like, nobody else was having a fucking Game Gear. Like, if you had a Game Gear, you were probably shunned at school. You know, probably thrown in the corner or some shit. Like, everybody had a Game Boy. Yeah.
Portable gaming for me definitely started with the Game Boy. My dad, I remember he got me that for Christmas one year. Came like in some kind of carrying case with the magnifying glass attachment that had a light built in. You know, all the bolt-on parts.
Yeah, the transforming Optimus Prime Game Boy. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So I had all those parts, and I remember one of the games that it came with was The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening.
Which is such a ridiculous good game.
And at that time, that was I had never played a Zelda game prior to that. I didn't do any of the originals on NES. I had not played Link to the Past at that time, and so I didn't know what it was, but I was like, okay, whatever, Link, sure, I'll give it a try. And that's just when like my love for the Zelda franchise exploded. It's probably my favorite franchise still today, but that was kind of my gateway experience into becoming a Zelda fan, and I don't know, that memory just stands out to me as being real special.
Yeah, it's funny because like I had a Nintendo, never played Zelda. Just again, it's not like I didn't like it. It's just one of those I just, for whatever reason, I just passed on. And then I didn't play a Zelda game until same thing. My buddy got a Game Boy and he got Link's Awakening DX or whatever it was, like the newer version of it. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is such a good game. And then later to find out, like, oh, by the way, there was a game on the NES that was just like this whole damn time that you could have been playing. Like, that would have been cool to know earlier in life. But dude, yeah, Link's Awakening, just, you know, when you first find out, oh, bombs on the wall, blow up, there's a door. And then that noise that like just sticks in your head. You're just like, I just want to keep playing this. Like, that's all I want to do.
I know, it's super special.
Yeah, and I mean, I did not have my own Game Boy until Pokemon, which I think that's when like everyone and their mother started getting a Game Boy because Pokemon happened. But I never really like played too many Game Boy games. I remember Link's Awakening, obviously Tetris. I remember Mario Land just sucking. Like I just didn't like it. Like I remember playing it just like, no, this isn't fun. Like what all games did you have for it?
Yeah, I definitely had Mario Land, and I don't remember thinking that it sucked, but I might have played it just because I didn't have a ton of games at the time. That was probably more the case.
I think Mario 3 spoiled me though, because I think it's the order you play. Like Mario 3 is so good, and then if you go play Land after that, you're like, this is trash.
Yeah, I can't imagine going back to Mario Land after experiencing Mario 3. I mean, Mario 3 was the epitome of Mario for its time.
Yeah. Like Mario 3 still to this day is like ridiculously fun and good, and like nobody can crap on that game at all.
I mean, everybody had Tetris.
That was like, I think that was required.
Iconic. Yeah. There was some kind of baseball game. It might have been Mario Baseball. I think it was Mario Baseball. I remember a baseball game where Mario was. I don't think it was like, it wasn't like your Mario Tennis, so it wasn't like Mario characters. But I remember just Mario being as a person in the game. Exactly. Yeah. I think you're right. I think it was just like a generic baseball game, but Mario was
just like Mario was the referee in Mike Tyson's Punch Out and stuff. Like he just showed up in games just because they were like, hey, let's just put this guy in all of our games.
Speaking of great games, Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
Yes.
What a class.
Fun game. I never got. Once I got to Tyson, he always whooped my ass. I personally never beat him.
I don't think I beat him without cheats. I feel like I did with like a Game Genie or something, but yeah, I don't think I had the raw skill to do it.
Dude, that was the other thing too. Games were hard. Games used to be really friggin' hard.
Well, that's why games lasted so long back then. They weren't long games. You just couldn't beat them.
Yeah, that was the crazy thing, is like for real games, like for certain games, for example, Comic Zone, you can beat that game in like 2 or 3 hours. Like it's not long. And again, you're right. Games were really not that long, but it was just a matter of them being difficult to the point where it's just like hard as shit to get past certain parts. So, and of course there was no replaying it from the awesome point. It was, start over. So. Yeah, very few had the battery inside the cartridge that allowed saving. Like I think Zelda was one of the first to do that. I'm pretty sure it was, yeah, because I remember like there was no passwords. You're like, because that was again passwords, man. Nobody knows what the fuck a password is anymore. Like, let me rephrase that. They don't know what a password is in video games.
Right?
I say everybody's passwords for crap, but nobody remembers a password or a passcode or anything that you need to put in to get that progress back.
Yeah, I was a big Mega Man fan as well, so I'm pretty akin to passwords. Always writing down the pattern of the dots after you beat a boss in the original Mega Man. Right. Just start back there, the next day whenever you could pick it up and play again. So
I think every kid had a notebook and pen and paper next to them playing games, and of course it was the worst handwriting ever, and like it was in every direction, so you looked like a psycho because like all of a sudden the patch would come up and you wouldn't have time to like fix it, so you would just grab the pen and just write it regardless of how like crooked the notebook was. You didn't give a shit, so you end up having this journal of like just random numbers and things, and then your parents actually do think you're possessed by the devil because they just don't know what that means.
Well, speaking of that notebook, I would take paper of some kind, whether it's a notebook or just loose leaf or whatever. Whenever my mom would go to the grocery store, I would want to go with her. So while she's grocery shopping for an hour and a half, 2 hours, I could sit in the magazine section and read the latest Nintendo powers and skip right to the cheat section so I can write down everything that was in this magazine because I didn't have the money to buy it, of course. So,
of course.
So I made copies of all of those cheat codes and the pro tips and stuff that they would print in those magazines so I could take them home and try it on all the games that we had.
Yeah, because now we're all spoiled. We can just take a picture with our phones, or of course we have the internet to where magazines don't exist, sadly. But no, I mean, you had to go write down all the stuff. I think I remember doing that with Game Genie codes. Like, I think I remember that specifically, like having to go write down codes because of just whatever was in Game Genie at the time. Like, because they would update, they would have the giant books they would sell, because initially you buy it and it came with that one book. but then it would come, like, obviously when new games came out, you needed new codes and all that stuff. And then some of them were just posted in Nintendo Power, where they were just like, here's the new game genie codes. I'm like, yeah, I kind of need these. Or if you're renting a game that day, you just open up the magazine or open up the new updated codes and just get the codes that way.
Right.
So did you ever mess around with Game Genie or anything?
Yeah, a little bit. I remember it not working all the time. I think it would cause games to glitch out sometimes. I don't know if you had that experience, but
oh yeah, dude, it was really bad. Because you do it and then all of a sudden the game's broken. You put in the wrong code and the game's just broke.
Yeah, because it's essentially just rewriting the memory blocks on the cartridge and or loading it into memory differently. So
right, yeah, that's all it's doing is it's basically it's rewriting the code as you're playing it. But then the funny thing is certain things were unlimited lives. So then instead of having a number where the lives are, it's a squiggle mark that's black and white with a question mark mixed in there. It's an unknown character you've never seen in your life. You're like, what is that? Apparently that means unlimited lives. That's all that meant.
That's the symbol for infinity.
Yeah, exactly. That's what that means. But yeah, there was all these game breaking things, and then sometimes the codes or the games would glitch out because you just put in one wrong number and the game would just freak out. So
right.
Those are always fun. So So obviously you progress, you go down the road, keep playing games. Where did you steer next? Did you go? I'm not going to make a joke and say Saturn because nobody wants Saturn. Did you go PlayStation or did you go 64?
I actually went both. I went N64 first, and funny story about me getting the N64 and. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening to this, but I'm going to admit something that I've never actually admitted to you before. Scoop? Yeah. So Christmas 99, I want to say it was. I think it was the same year that Ocarina of Time came out. And so by this point, my love for Zelda is just through the roof. I had played A Link to the Past and so Ocarina of Time was coming out. Hype was through the roof. I had to have it, right? And so they had the gold cartridge edition of Ocarina of Time. And so I told Mom, I really want a Nintendo 64 and I want to get the special edition of this Zelda game. So I guess as the weeks were leading up to Christmas, my anticipation got a little too high and I went snooping and I went looking in her closet and I found it. And I saw the N64 sitting there under a pile of clothes, and I saw the gold edition of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. And, immediately I felt both, just sheer excitement, but also disappointment that I'm no longer going to be surprised.
Yeah, dude.
That I'm going to have to fake this in a few weeks and pretend I had no idea.
Oh man, I wonder, okay, so obviously you had to fake and everything. So okay, so how did that go on Christmas morning then?
I must have played it off pretty good because there were no questions ever asked. I still felt that remorse in me. I guess not enough to ever say anything.
Right.
But yeah, I don't remember anything becoming of that, or no, she I said, she found out. So
obviously, you did a good job then of faking your excitement.
Yeah,
you're good then. So the funny, I never. So as far as sneaking and trying to figure out stuff, I really don't remember ever sneaking and finding a present. Right? I don't remember that really. I remember. The only one thing that I remember that I knew I got a present for sure, and I think I've shared this story on the show before, is I went to this store called Venture, which was like a Walmart. It was a department store, but it was like a Walmart basically. And I remember in the toy section getting this Tommy, White Ranger Tommy sword, with the mouth that moved and everything. And I was holding it and I was losing my shit. I was like, Grandma, I want this. Grandma, I want this so bad. I want this so bad, Grandma. Like, I was probably just an annoying kid, right? And then she's like, no, we're good. We're not going to get it right now. And I remember literally not like crying, causing a scene, but like just hyperventilating, walking away. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't throwing a tantrum. I was just literally so incredibly sad that I'm just walking quiet, but tears are just flying out of my face. And I'm just so fucking sad that I had to leave that thing. And I remember we were leaving the store and I was still crying. Like I was fucking horror. I was like traumatized. I was like, I want that more than life. Like I wanted it so fucking bad. And then it got to a point where my grandma's like, oh crap, you know what? I forgot something. Hey, Melody, which is my mom's name, can you take him to the car? I'll just be right back. I gotta go grab something. And of course, she was trying to play dumb because she was gonna go grab it to go buy it for me for Christmas. But then, like, I think at that time I was like, as I was walking back to the car, I was like, I think I just got that sword. And I was like so fucking happy inside. But again, I couldn't show it because I couldn't play it. I had to play stupid, like, okay. And then I opened it up for Christmas. And of course, I was still happy I got it. So I wasn't faking anything. But
well,
I mean,
sure.
But obviously, you know, had she like just went to fucking, if she was like, nope, let's go home and didn't say that, I probably would have lost my shit. Like opening it up on Christmas. But dude, yeah, I it's hard to say, like, describing how I was crying because I definitely wasn't one of those brat kids because if I acted up, my mom would have slapped the hell out of me in the store. But, it was just one of those where I was just like walking quiet, just like literally losing every bit of my mind at the time. So it's okay. I just had to do that to get a White Ranger sword and that shit was awesome. So whatever. Yeah. But yeah, dude, by the way, I can imagine as a parent now, my kids obviously try to sneak stuff. Like they try. And you just gotta get hiding spots and, you know, threaten violence, of course. No, I'm just playing. Don't threaten to beat your kids. But, no, that's the hard part. But I won't say I felt that way, but like my son, I got him an let me rephrase that. Santa got him an Xbox One, for Christmas. And when he opened it up, I didn't get the reaction I thought I was going to get. Like, he was happy. Obviously, he was happy because he had his own now. He didn't have to mess with mine. So he was happy, but he didn't do the, like, N64 kid freak out, you know, which I was hoping for. And I was just filming it, and he got it, and he's just like, oh, that's awesome. And it just kind of was just like, cool as I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I wanted a freak out moment. And I'm sure your mom wanted that same thing from you as well, so.
Yeah, she probably did.
I mean, again, as long as you faked enough, I mean, she never questioned it. The worst would have been if she straight went like, did you fucking see this already? Just get super serious. Like, I know, did you see this already? Why are you not acting like this? Like, at least she didn't question it at the time. So obviously you did a good job.
Yep, I guess so.
But you got a 64 and you got a PlayStation?
I did eventually. It wasn't until years later. PlayStation wasn't the new hotness, I guess. I don't know, maybe it was still current gen. But I remember buying it used off of something called the classified advertisements.
Yes.
You may have heard of those. They were found in, this large print format thing they called the newspaper.
Back in the 1800s.
Right.
Yeah, before Craigslist.
Yeah. So yeah, I remember, back it up a little bit. My friend Johnny that I grew up with, like I said, they used to get all the new tech, and he had an older sister who was into video gaming as well. And so she, funny, you made a joke about the Saturn earlier. She was like the Sega girl. She had the Genesis, the Sega Saturn, the Sega CD, and all of that stuff.
That poor girl.
She loved them. Hey, whatever makes her happy. But they were first to, of, I guess, us on the street to get the Sony PlayStation as well. And so it was over there playing, they were playing Final Fantasy VII. And at that time, I had never seen an RPG game. Like, I know they existed on, NES, SNES, all the way up. But I'd never really played that type of game up to that point.
Right.
So, I saw it, and then, they're playing it, and then you see the first FMV, the first cinema cutscene, and it's like
your head explodes. Yeah,
wonder, bewilderment. Yeah, like, what is this? And I need to have it. Where do I find this? So I sought one out, found a used one, and I'd saved up enough money to go and buy it. So Mom took me over there, and we bought it from some random strangers, and I went immediately to Walmart, bought a copy of Final Fantasy VII, and the rest is history. Best RPG to date, if you ask me. So
yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the bigger games that introduced me to RPGs as well. I will say though, Pokemon introduced it first, because that's basically like Little Tyke's my first RPG. Mm-hmm. It's basically Pokemon. Sorry. It's just a basic turn-based RPG. Like,
sure.
And you collect and level up, and you can customize characters in your loadouts, and yeah, it's a fucking RPG. But, no, Final Fantasy VII was that same thing though. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah.
That's, like I said, that's what I'm saying as far as it goes with, RPGs. Like Final Fantasy VII, though, after that first cutscene, I know what you're talking about. Then that splash screen comes up, and you're like, "What is life? This is insane." And of course, now you look at it and you go, "Wow, what the fuck?" But back then, it was mind blowing.
Music as well. Like that was a huge leap in the score of a video game.
Right. No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that was like, again, and that was also showing how much better CD-ROM was going to be over cartridges in the long term, because like those like CGI videos were not happening anywhere else. And of course, like, I remember liking Square games just because they had the best cinematics. Like, they were just ridiculous at that time. Like them, and like obviously Capcom started getting good, but like, dude, Final Fantasy like cutscenes were ridiculous.
Oh, for sure.
Right. So then, so as far as it goes, so you got a PlayStation from some random dude, which thankfully your mom went with you, because that's not sketchy. And then, so you just kind of, as far as it goes, was there ever a point in time when you didn't play games as much? Was there ever a point in time when like your hobbies changed to where video gaming kind of took a back seat?
Yes, there definitely was a lull, and it was probably nearing the end of high school. College was soon on the horizon, and I think that around that time the new hotness was the PS2, or it was coming out soon, or it was already out, but it was super expensive, and I couldn't afford one. That, and just like trying to do well in school and keep my grades up, and like I said, focusing on what I'm going to do for college. And so during that time, like, gaming definitely took a back seat. I still played, N64 some, I still played PlayStation a little bit, but it wasn't like every waking spare moment that I had. Social life was starting to branch out and whatnot. So, gaming did kind of take a little bit of a back seat. And I guess it probably stayed that way until the Nintendo Wii came out. So I missed PS2. I missed the GameCube.
And original Xbox.
I missed that. I ended up going back and getting a GameCube during college. But it definitely was not new by that time. I got one cheap for like $60. Again, on Craigslist. Craigslist was my best friend in college. But yeah, like it, gaming just kind of took a back seat for me. I was getting involved in stuff on campus, and, and then there's girls coming on the scene. So it's like you're interested.
Shut shit down. That'll stop.
Not kidding.
Everything.
You are not kidding, because it's like you are afraid to admit that's a thing in your life.
Right.
At a certain age, you're like scared to admit that you're a nerd or a geek. But yeah, that's funny. I think it was somewhere around 2007, I think, when I picked up a Nintendo Wii while I was still in college.
Sounds right.
Yeah, and that really drew me back in. Like I started to gain a bigger interest in it. It had some really fun party games with Mario Party 8, and Guitar Hero was already huge by then. That was gaining popularity, like on Xbox 360 and PS3 and stuff. so I got some of those games and enjoyed playing that with my roommates in college. And
I think the Wii, like, obviously the Wii was a ridiculous phenomenon. Like, grandmas had it, 5-year-olds had it. Like, everybody had a fucking Wii. It was definitely one of those things that became like it was like in a house, even if they didn't play games. You know what I mean? It ended up being like a VCR or like a DVD player. Like, it didn't matter everybody had a fucking Wii. Like, everybody had one. And it was the thing that the kids played, or it was the thing that grandma and grandpa played with, because the whole family did. Like, it was there for everything. So, and I mean, I can imagine, like, the thing that sucks is, like, I personally didn't go to college. So, like, that atmosphere of, like, a dorm or, like, just being with a bunch of buddies, like, doing just that, I can imagine being, because you had the more freedom of high school, because you were an adult. But you still had that atmosphere of, like, being with your buddies at school. I can imagine that plus video games equals the funnest shit ever.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when there was time, it was still, college was still a busy time.
School's for suckers. You just show up there and party and play games. That's what you're there for, right? Right?
No? Yeah, okay. Yeah. I mean,
that's just ASU, I guess. Okay.
Oh man.
So did you ever go back and like check out any of the stuff then, like after the fact? Because I mean, you missed out on some good shit if that's the case.
Yeah, no, like I did. I guess really the only one I went back and picked up was the GameCube. I never did pick up an original Xbox or a PS2 or a PS3. I missed a ton of goodness through PS2 era that I still want to catch up to today. Like, ever since Final Fantasy VII, I've been big into that series. So, Final Fantasy X and X-2 are, heralded as some of the greatest on PS2. And now they have that re-released in HD on PS4. So, one day I hope to get to it. But like I said, the only one that I really went back and got was the GameCube. That was probably driven by my want to play Wind Waker.
I was going to say Zelda. Interesting. You went to GameCube. Interesting.
Yeah, so I picked up a GameCube and immediately went to this. We had this local game store in a nearby town. Not your big chains like GameStop or whatever, but this place called the Video Game Cavern, and so they had all these used games for sale, and I picked up Wind Waker for $12, and beautiful, gorgeous game. I know it was catching a lot of flack at the time for the massive change in art direction and gameplay style. That some people hated it, some people loved it. It was kind of polarizing, but I fell in love with it. So that, and then like another peer in college, he was selling off like his entire GameCube collection because he was trying to save up to buy a Wii, and he was selling like all his games out of one of those CD cases. He had like dozens of them in there, and he was selling them for like $10 a pop. So I picked up Spider-Man 2, Need for Speed, Most Wanted.
Spider-Man 2. For real, the greatest Spider-Man game. Like,
dude, that was a great game.
It was so good. And it had no right to be that good. Like, it was a movie tie-in game. It had no right to be that good.
Yeah, except for the balloon missions.
Yeah, screw that kid
lost their balloon.
That kid can go to hell.
So that was fun, really getting to go back on GameCube, playing some of those Super Smash Brothers, Melee. In college, I had also gotten into, I was introduced to the original Super Smash Brothers on Nintendo 64. And so that was like the best time, getting 4 friends together to just brawl it out and on Smash. And we would do that for hours. So of course, when I got the GameCube, I went back to get Super Smash Brothers Melee as well. Trying to think what else there was. Paper Mario, Thousand Year Door. It's another good one.
Yeah, like for me, I never played the 64 Smash, so I never had that like that need of like wanting to play, or like I remember playing Melee first, and Melee being just so much fun. And I remember everybody saying like Smash and 64 it's not as fast and stuff like that, and just I never went back and played it, so I never really bothered. But yeah, dude, Smash Brothers, bro. I remember Melee definitely was at one of my New Year's Eve parties when I was like, hey, and of course I think, no, I wasn't of age yet. Anyways, I was like, hey, anytime you get smashed off the level, you got to take a drink. To the point where I had buddies playing and jumping off the fucking level on purpose just to drink. And I'm like, oh, it's not the point of the game, guys. You're supposed to try to win. And he's like, no, I'm trying to get drunk. I'm like, all right, I get it.
So y'all were playing Super Smashed Brothers.
Yeah, yeah, we were. This sounds way better. Look at that. That sounds like way better of a game. But no, like that was what we did, man. And it was super cool how they had that and everything. But I remember Melee very well. There was times, because I worked at a video game store, where I would like not necessarily shut shit down, but like lock the doors and like it was closing time. But then my buddies and I would just stay in there and play Smash and do that. So we did that quite a bit. Nice. But yeah, I never really played the 64 version. Like again, I didn't have a 64 until super late in the life cycle. And I remember the only thing I remember about Smash Brothers, the original one for 64, was the commercial.
Yes.
That's the only thing I remember, because they would just beat the shit out of each other, and like the big like mascot costumes were just awesome.
Exactly.
That's
that
the only
was
thing
so
I
good.
remember for it distinctively.
Yep. Nintendo was definitely gaining an edge during that time. They were trying to show that they're not just a kids company or kids gaming platform anymore. They were trying to put a little edge on it. So, but man, like between the original Smash and Smash Melee, like if you were to put two of those in a room and say pick one, every time I'm going to pick the original Smash. I admit Melee has better graphics. It's got, it's more content. You got more characters. You got more fighting stages. Just about everything about it is better. But I tell you, every time we sat down to play the original Smash, I had some of them just the loudest, most hilarious, fun times. It's like the fun I would get out of the original Smash was far more than I would ever get out of Melee. So,
and again, everybody, I mean, I personally, like I said, I never went back and played the 64 one. The only thing everybody told me is like the Melee one was just like smoother and faster and stuff. So I just was like, all right, let's play this. But then like I remember the Wii one coming out, and it was like not that great.
Yeah, like
it was okay, but I remember just something didn't feel right about it. It just felt weird. But then like obviously the Wii U version was awesome. Like they did a good job with that. And then of course the Switch version coming out is going to be just, it's your dream,
It's bonkers. It's just bonkers. How many?
Everything. Hey, how about 700 music tracks? Like, huh? Like, Jesus. So, but that's the type of game that when you are a company like Nintendo, you can do that shit. Like everybody's like, if Microsoft did a game like that, who would be in it? I'm like, fucking 6 people maybe. And I love Xbox so much, but like 7 people maybe. Like unless you just start getting all third party people, not a whole lot. Which is funny is now, I won't say this is their Smash Brothers, but they basically turn Killer Instinct into the Xbox fighter, because like Arbiter's in there. Battletoads are in there. The General Ram from Gears is in there. Like, they just basically made like, hey, we got a fighting game. We just, it's more like, but dude, apparently Killer Instinct, fun game. I think that's. Would you consider Smash a fighting game?
Yes.
Some people out there don't. Some people are out there think it's. I don't know what they consider it, but
yeah.
I don't know. Like it's just fighting games are like, I personally never really liked fighting games. Like, let me rephrase that. Mortal Kombat back in the day was amazing because it was the shit. It was everybody was playing, so you played it. But then like as the game started getting progressively more and more complex and like combos and breakers and like all this shit, I just got out of it, and then I just started to suck at them. So I never really liked it, except for Smash. Smash is just pretty amazing. So I think we can all agree with that. If anybody doesn't like Smash Brothers out there, maybe you just, I don't know, you don't like video games in general? I don't know. I don't know how you can't like Smash. Like, I really don't. Like, I don't give a shit if you don't like Mario or Zelda. There's like a character in Smash that you like, and you would play that. Like, now especially, because there's all these third-party people now. There's a lot of third-party people now.
Oh, yeah, definitely. There is.
I still wonder if they're going to do any more, but oh well. We'll find out in December.
We will. I'm sure they will. I'm sure they're going to find some way to squeeze in some more DLC characters and
dude, they just need to shut up and put Waluigi in
that.
there. Because everybody got pissed when he wasn't in there. Just shut up and put Waluigi in there.
I just had a random thought, Mitch.
What's that?
going back to like the original question you asked me about what got me into gaming, I can't believe I forgot to mention arcades.
Yeah, a lot of people tend to forget that.
Dude, arcades, like that was my jam. You know, anytime you go to the mall, is like the first place I wanted to go was to the arcade with a handful of quarters and just pop it in Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat like you're talking about, or, you know, that Terminator 2 with the gun that was great while you're, you know, you got the missile button on the side of it. And those types of experiences were just so engaging. And so I remember playing arcades. Every time I find one, I'm like begging for quarters.
Oh yeah. That's more annoying, by the way, than like asking for quarters, man. Ooh, that's a hard sell sometimes, unless your parents really don't want you to hang around. Like, like, man, trying to beg, Mom, I need more quarters. Oh, I just gave you like $10 worth of quarters. What are you doing to me?
I can remember one time I was riding with a friend of mine. I went over to his house. His dad took us to this place called Last Chance or Lucky Chance or something like that. But it was just a small little mom and pop arcade, you know, right in the middle of town.
Right.
And he had saved up, you know, seemed like hundreds of dollars. I don't know how much it was really. It was just a sack full of change though. And I'd saved mine. And so we went there and spent just like 3 hours pumping quarters into every machine that we could there. And gosh, what a time that was. You don't have anything like that now, you know, with the convenience and of like games on your phone. And so everywhere you go, you have a game with you. You don't have to go seek them out like you had to then. And,
right.
And just like now with the free to play models, games are just so much more accessible than they were back in the day. So arcades are greatly missed.
My favorite thing in the world is the fact that like now if you go to an arcade, it is just cell phone games. Like if you go there, it's literally like balloon or not. No, it's just like Doodle Jump and Fruit Ninja. It's just phone games. Like that's all it is.
Oh,
and
right.
It's just kind of funny that that's the funny, like that's how it is now. Cause there's a bowling alley up the street that has an arcade in it. And, it's like Piano Keys and Fruit Ninja and all these games. I'm just like, hey, those are all like cell phone games. They're just now full size cell phone games.
Right.
I will shout out one thing in Illinois where I grew up. There was not many arcades specifically, right? There was places that had some arcade games, but there was never a place that actually had full on arcade games, and that's all they did. And then they opened up a place called Nickel World. So like a, you know, nickel, 5-cent nickel.
Uh-huh.
This place opened up, and the way they did it was the games in there were 5 cents, and they had games that were free, like literally free, like Pac-Man, old school games that were completely 100% free. But they had some newer games that were 5 cents. But instead of just doing that, what they do is they charge people an admission fee to get in. Yeah. And then they would just have cheaper games throughout the thing. Dude, I guarantee you they made more money doing that than anything else. Because the admission fee was like a couple bucks a person just to like go out to the floor. But then they'd have rolls of nickels that you could just buy. And dude, DDR was there.
Yeah.
And like, it was amazing, and that place is still open to this day. And when I went back at home and visited and took my kids, I'm like, we are going there.
That's
and
awesome.
Shout out to them because they're still doing shit, man.
Yeah, it seems like whenever I see those arcades that are still around today, they seem to have adapted that new type of model where it's just pay an entry fee, but the games are free. Like they have them all on free play, and so just play as much as you want. There's a place in Nashville or near Nashville's a town outside of it that we went to Nashville this summer. We were going to go to that place. Something happened and we couldn't go there for whatever reason it was, but other people in our group did, and told us it was a pretty awesome experience. You know, just pay $10 and then go in and play whatever game you want completely free. So
yeah, that's other right now. It's funny at Dave & Buster's they're doing a similar thing, but of course they're only doing it on the games that don't give you tickets because God forbid they don't want you just to pay and just get all this free shit. So, by the way,
Right.
I've never once seen a single person buy something that was 50,000 tickets. That shit's a lie. Like, no one has ever done that before, ever. And if you have, please reach out to me. I would love to have you on the show just to talk about that shit. Like, your history with gaming would only involve you being at the arcade for 10 years to get that item that's 50,000 points or whatever, 50,000 tickets. Because that shit's ridiculous, dude. You always saw those things, and I'm like, no one does that. No one gets that. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, if you know anybody that works at an arcade, tell them to come on my show. Please, I want to hear that shit. So after the Wii, you kind of got back into gaming, and then now, what are your habits like today? Did you kind of get full back into it? Did you go PS3, 360, like PS4, all that back in full swing?
So I did. I got back into it pretty hard once I finished college and started working, because it was like no longer did I have to stay up late doing homework or studying or making, writing papers or preparing presentations, stuff like that. So it's like I can put in my 8 hours of work, and then I can go home and I can stay up until 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, because I was still young at that time, and not feel it the next day.
Right.
And all of that time was spent, playing video games. At that point, I'm not married. I didn't have kids, so it was like I had a lot of free time when I first finished college. So I made really good friends with one of my coworkers at my first job. And funny enough, he and we bonded over our love for Final Fantasy VII. Like, just out of the blue one day, we're sitting across from one another. It's a slow day. There's not much going on. And I just said, "Hey, you ever played Final Fantasy VII?" And like, his eyes just grew 3 sizes, and he got a twinkle in them. And it was like, he was like, "We're going to be friends."
That's awesome.
Because he loved it. He had it on his PSP, and so we built a bond over that game, talking about it at work, and so it was like it grew from let's just talk about games at work to, hey, why don't you come hang out with our crew on Saturday? We get together every Saturday. We play video games. We watch movies. We go out to eat. Yada yada yada. Why don't you come hang out with us one Saturday soon? So I did that, and he introduced me to the Xbox 360, and I had seen, some peers in college playing it, but I never had one, close enough to play of my own. So he introduced me to like Forza Motorsport 2 and Halo 3. So that was my first introduction to any Halo game. And so he demoed these for me, and I'm like, whoa, these games look incredible. Like, this is far better than my GameCube.
Yeah, I think that was the last, in my opinion, like holy shit jump. Like the
right.
HD.
Yeah, absolutely. And even more above the Wii as well, with the basic graphics, and 480i, I think, was the highest resolution output you could get on a Wii. So like, seeing all this stuff in HD and the better textures and everything was just like visually popping. Like, I was really drawn in. So of course, I'm starting to hang out with them more regularly on the weekends, and I went out and found myself a Craigslist special used Xbox 360, and it came with Halo 3. So that was my first taste in the Halo games. That was actually my first experience into a dual stick first person shooter game where you can move with your left stick and camera and aim with your right stick.
Right.
That threw me for a loop.
It'll mess you up a bit.
That took
Once
some
you get
getting
used to it, though, you're good.
Like, prior to that, it was like GoldenEye, where you had, to aim, you had to pull up the crosshairs and then move around. But so yeah, that was a little bit of a learning curve. But I fell in pretty hard with the 360. I got hooked in, and that was my main. And I didn't really have much of a desire to check out PS3 at that point. Because
at that generation,
all in to one side at that point, it was kind of hard to keep up with all of them.
Right. So then, so you progress. I mean, obviously, like I was more into Xbox than I was PlayStation, and that's pretty much been the case, because of Halo. Thank you, Halo. That's always been my thing, is like I've always preferred Xbox over PlayStation. Not saying PlayStation is garbage, because I have it all now, so I have all the above, and I think they're great, but for their own reasons.
Right.
But no, like, I mean, I didn't get a PS3 until super, like, not late in the life cycle, but I got it. Here's what's sad. I got it with the hopes of Kingdom Hearts 3.
You and a lot of others.
We know where that we know where that ended up. We ended up not going anywhere because nobody made that game for that system. But no, I mean, you know, now the thing is like everybody's got their own thing that they like, but also too, nobody can shit on one particular thing because like everybody's got good things to play, and anybody who says I don't need that system because it has no good games, I don't care what system it is, you're fucking stupid and naive. Like every single system has good games that are just amazing, and it sucks now because you kind of have to have all of the above to play everything. But
for sure.
I mean, what are your mains now? Like, what is your main console choice today?
I bounce around. Like you had said, I've got them all. So between the Switch and the Xbox One, those are probably my two mains. Currently, my Switch is my main. I'm playing Octopath Traveler and Mega Man X Legacy Collection when I need something a little quicker and less involved. So those are kind of my mains right now. When I'm not playing something heavy on the Switch, I'm going back to Xbox One more than likely. I do have a PS4. I just picked it up this year. And
there's some good shit on it, man.
There is, and I've already tried. I'm okay. So I'm trying to experience some of the stuff that I missed through the PS4, like with the HD re-releases. So
good idea.
I picked up the Uncharted collection.
Yep.
Nathan Drake collection, I think it's called. Yep. So I finished Uncharted's 1 and 2. Have not started 3 yet, but those are a lot of fun so far. I have 4 waiting for me on the shelf as well, so that's in my backlog. I have Horizon Zero Dawn waiting in my backlog as well.
Best game on the system.
I've got some really solid titles. I'm going to say something that's going to make a lot of people mad. I bought The Last of Us, and I didn't like it.
Some people don't, man. I mean, I personally thought it was great. But also, too, some people don't like how fucking sad and depressing it is. Like, some people just straight, like, they just prefer happiness when they play games, not like, God, this is fucking sad. Nobody wants to hear this shit. Like, dude, when, like, especially real fast, especially as a parent, when you see that first part of The Last of Us, you fucking break down. You're just like, oh my God. No. Oh my God, this is how this game's going to be. All right, let's go. That's fine. I guess this is how we're going to do it. But no, some people don't like it. I mean, I personally, I thought it was great. Again, I thought it was a good story, but also you had to be in a certain mood. You know what I mean? You can't have a fucking happy, awesome time and then like go to that game and go, geez, my mood's kind of destroyed. Like you gotta have to be in a certain mood, in a mindset to play that game. Not saying you have to be depressed or sad, but I mean, it's just like, that's some sad shit that happens in that game. Like, sometimes it's just sad.
It is. It's a masterpiece in storytelling. It really is, and that's not what I was really not liking about it. The storytelling was fine. It was great. It was more just the gameplay. The controls felt clunky to me.
But you've been playing Uncharted. It's like the same damn thing.
Okay, so yes, true. Uncharted 1, that was clunky as hell.
Dude, Uncharted 1 is trash. Like, I'm sorry. Uncharted 1, as far as the story is, whatever. The gameplay, the controls, the fucking aiming for the grenades is all garbage.
No, you're right. 2 improved on it greatly, and I'm looking forward to how well 3 and 4 improve on it even more. 3 and 4 are they're really good. Yeah. So, but yeah, I just found myself more frustrated playing The Last of Us than I was having fun. Again, not because of the storytelling. That was phenomenal, and maybe I'll go back and try to finish it. Maybe I'll just crank it down to easy and see if I can blast my way through it just to finish it out.
Did you beat it or no?
No, I stopped maybe
okay, yeah,
7 hours in.
Yeah, go beat that game. It's good. It's good. Yeah. And the ending's good. And yeah. But I'm sorry, Horizon, though, is my favorite game of that console.
Yeah.
Horizon's ridiculous. God of War, it's fun. I'm sorry, Horizon's better. I prefer, personally, I prefer sci-fi over Greek or Norse mythology and shit.
Sure.
I just like sci-fi as a genre better, so that's why I was more cool. God of War, great game, not shitting on it. Like, really cool, great storytelling, great visuals, fun gameplay. Again, like, I just preferred every one of those things, but then the setting and story of Horizon better just because it was sci-fi.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one. I love sci-fi setting more than some of the other, like, fantasy or like you said.
You didn't like Last of Us, and I don't like Skyrim, so it's okay. And guess what? I don't like Skyrim because of elves and orcs and all that bullshit. I just don't like it. Check this out. I don't like Lord of the Rings. I love Shadow of War and Mordor just because the gameplay is so goddamn good. But every time a story cutscene shows up, I just skip it. I don't fucking care. Like, I'm just like...
The crazy thing is Skyrim is so accessible. You can probably find a version of it for like your TI-83 calculator if you wanted to. I've never played it.
It's fun. I just like Fallout because it has guns. Sorry. And the setting. I'm sorry. I'm not saying games without guns aren't fun, but just again, the setting, when you start talking about elves and orcs and magic and fuck off. I don't want to hear any of that. Like, I don't care about any of that shit. I would much rather see Star Wars over and over and over than any Lord of the Rings movie. Sorry. That's just, I'm into sci-fi. That's how I am. So.
I hear you.
Well, if people wanted to check you out and light you up for not beating The Last of Us 2 or The Last of Us or, like hating that game, where would they go?
They would go to the twitter.com/bravesb. That's BRAVESB with an underscore at the end of it. That is pretty much it. I'm very active on Twitter. I don't do streaming or anything though, so I don't have YouTube where I post any content. So, Twitter is probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Absolutely. If you want to check out him on Twitter, I'll have a link in the show notes so you can go ahead and light him up, but be nice. I mean, don't light him up that bad and everything. So, and also, I mean, he's got other games to play. We can all share. And also, how about you hit him up and tell him all the cool PS3 games he missed out on so you can play those? How about that?
Yeah, give me some suggestions. Like, I'm not a fanboy to any one system. I like them all. I just like playing games. So give me some good suggestions.
Absolutely. Well, dude, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for sharing all your stories with me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Mitch. I enjoyed it.
All right. And again, thank you, Bryan, for being on the show. If you guys want to check him out on Twitter, go ahead and follow him at BravesB_. Also, too, of course, I'll have links in the show notes for that. So if you want to, feel free to send him some suggestions on some PS3 classics that got remastered to PS4. Definitely send him all that so that way he can fully experience what he missed during that little gap in his gaming history. If you guys want to be on the show just like he was, go ahead and send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 on Twitter or at the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast on Twitter. We also have the YouTube channel. Just search up GUG Podcast in YouTube. You'll see all the shows there. I keep saying I want to do more content there, play some classic games, stream them there. I definitely need to get on that because I feel that the people that are on the show that share their history with these particular games that have this fond memory, I want to try to play those and see what it is that they found so genuine and fun about those games from their past. So hopefully more on that to come later. Of course, there's also the Facebook group, which is Growing Up Gaming. You just search that in Facebook. You'll find that right away. Again, thank you guys so much for returning each and every week to the show. Hopefully you have subscribed on iTunes or Google Play or YouTube so you can catch new episodes each and every Tuesday. If you guys feel like a rating, give me a rating on iTunes. That would be great. Let me know what I'm doing good, what I'm not doing good. Any feedback on the show is really appreciated. Again, thank you guys so much for listening each and every week. I greatly appreciate it, and I will catch you guys next week with another new episode. See ya.